Stories of our members, past and present.
With your permission, I'm going to talk about these two things. Do you know why? Well, good. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, fine. I learned about this from Howard Snell. Howard used to order a beer. He would put an olive in it. And then he would watch the olive bob. Howard's record was 3 times up because the bubbles collect on the olive. They go to the top, they drop the bubbles, and there's one. Can you see? The olive's at the top now. It will drop its bubbles, it will go back down again. And so for years I could order Howard Snell and Marty knew exactly what that was. There it goes down.
Oh my God! Wow!
Less than a minute.
Yeah, my friend Dick Templin has a boat here at the club. It's the Misbehavin', and we've been out many, many times to fish. As a matter of fact, he's fished for 14 years and never caught a marlin. And this particular day we went out, the day was beautiful. The water was smooth, the sun was shining, and we were trolling 3 different types of lures. We had a marlin lure and we had 2 yellowfin lures. And as it turned out, I got the first hit of the day on a yellowfin lure, and the marlin hit, and when he did, he was probably 100 yards off the boat when he hit, and he did a beautiful tail dance, which is really exciting, and just to watch a fish do that. And it took me about 25 to 30 minutes to boat him, and we got him to the boat, and when I got him to the boat, the other guys had a hold of the bill. They took the hook out of the bill and released him, and he slid back into the water. We continued to fish, and that boat, as I say, before never got a marlin, and we got 3 marlin that day. It was just one of those days that it was just nice to be on the water and nice to fish.
But tell me, did Dick ever get one?
Dick has to this day. He has before down in Mexico, but not on his boat. He ran the boat the whole day. He did the operating of the boat and moving the boat forward and backwards and backing down on the fish like you have to do, and that's what he did. No, he didn't come off the bridge at all, but the other 2 guys besides myself each caught a fish that day.
Hi, I'm Mark Mumaw. I've been a member here for nearly 30 years now. I'm a life member. Back in 1995, I had the pleasure of being a fleet captain. At that time, the sail fleet was still pretty much a social organization, and quite a bit different than we find today. But we had great fun. And every year we had a chili cook-off. And I had the pleasure of having this wonderful man who was a consummate marketing guy, funny as ever, named Warren Morris. And Warren has since passed. But Warren and I got the brilliant idea that we would have a chili cook-off where you prepared the chili on site, and we would do it out on the south lawn and make it an all-day affair, which we did. We rented burners that were 2 burners per station. We had 5 or 6 of them and about a dozen contestants. Well, of course, Warren and I shared a burner, and we started drinking margaritas quite early in the morning. And needless to say, by about 10 or 10:30, we were about 3 sheets to the wind, both of us. And I went off to check and see how everybody was doing, and I was walking around. I happened to glance back at our station, and here's Warren dipping the chili out of my pot into his pot. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I came back, and Warren went out to do something, and so I dipped the chili from his pot back into my pot. And we were laughing the whole time. I knew what he was doing. He probably knew what I was doing as well. And we had a judge from the Union Tribune, whose name I can't remember, but he was the food guy for the Union Tribune. He came to judge chili that day. And at the end of the day, Warren actually won second place in the chili cook-off. I didn't even get an honorable mention. But he kept the plaque. We got a nice little plaque, and he kept it for a couple of years, and he said, finally relented and gave it back to me. And I still have it to this day, and every day I see that, I think of Warren. What a wonderful time we had back then.
And both chilies tasted equally good?
Both chilies were basically the same chili because we're moving them back and forth between the pots. So however that worked out, I don't know.
That's a great story, Mark. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So go ahead, tell me the story.
Don asked me to tell some stories I've had here at the Southwestern Yacht Club. And I was going to mention the one about my embarrassment when I had a very, very close Army buddy who he and his wife came down here from Newport Beach, and they're very wealthy now. I was in the military back in the 60s. And we wanted to impress them with our boat and our day on the water at the Southwestern Yacht Club. So we went out we have a wonderful day on the water. Nora, my wife, makes a wonderful lunch. And we're having a great sail with plenty of breeze. And we come back to the dock, to the Southwestern Yacht Club, and sure enough, right behind our slip, which is real close to the juniors, there's a big mound of mud. And sure enough, with our almost 8-foot keel, we went aground just as we were turning into the slip. So we sat there, stuck for an hour. That was how I impressed my friend with how great a day we have at Southwestern. How wonderful a club we have. I had to explain to him the dredging was coming up. Anyhow, that was a real pain in the neck for me. He hasn't been back since.
The schooner Priscilla was built and commissioned in 1924, a year before Southwestern Yacht Club began. In 1954, Stephanie Baker, when she was only 9 years old, became first mate after her mom, Martha, bought the schooner. Martha had grown up in a racing family back east and became an active member of Southwestern Yacht Club when women were still a rarity as members. Her dream was to race in the Transpac, and in 1957 that dream came true, and daughter Stephanie was the youngest female to ever crew in the Transpac. 1957 also marked the first time Southwestern Yacht Club had an entry in this race. We are honored to have Stephanie here today to celebrate the new life of Priscilla.
My name's Stephanie Baker Elliott. I grew up sailing Quasilla from about 54 to 58 or 59, I'm not sure which. It was a huge event. My mom, it was her bucket list to have a schooner and sail Transpac. Her father was a great racer on the East Coast, and she wanted to do Transpac. That was her bucket list. And so Quasilla was purchased, and we campaigned her for, I think, 2 or 3 years. So I was about 9, I think, when I started sailing on her. And we campaigned her for about 2 or 3 years, and then we did Transpac. And Transpac that year had 4 years of absolutely no wind. It was a mill pond out there. So as a 12-year-old, you can imagine, I had one deck of cards and one game of cootie. And that's all I had to entertain myself. So it was interesting. I got to make the coffee in the morning, and I got to stop the Golly Wobbler. Those were my 2 big jobs, which were pretty substantial. But I had to entertain myself the rest of the time. And it was 19 days, as I said, and it was a long 19 days because 4 of those, there was no action. And so we filled the cockpit full of water. They took buckets and dumped them over and got sea urchins, and some of the people went swimming, and we bathed in salt water, and everything was done in salt water. My mom was a gourmet cook, and we all ran out of ice, I think about 4 or 5 days out, and so everything had to be done from cans. So the cans came up from the bilge, and she made these fabulous gourmet meals out of canned goods. And I think there were 7 of us on board, all good friends, some of them members of the yacht club, actually quite a few members of Southwestern. And it was probably a bucket list trip. At the time, I didn't know what a big role it was going to play in my life. And once you sail a schooner, there's something that happens in your heart. You don't get over it. You just always are gravitated toward it. And she's quite smooth to sail on. She's very beamy. There's a lot of room down below. But she was beautiful handling.
being a member of Southwestern Yacht Club, one of the special things I remember is when in the early 90s we were the host club for the Louis Vuitton series. And I happened to be sail fleet captain at that time, and I was privileged to introduce Peter Blake from New Zealand to the audience. And that was just a special memory.
When I first joined, I came in with a group from Point Loma Yacht Club that was based over at Half Moon, and they were absorbed into Southwestern because Southwestern had a lot of empty slips at the time. Anyway, one of the couples that came in with Bud James and the Geiger brothers and a bunch of others was Teddy and Joe Clement. Now, Teddy was sort of a feisty redhead, and Joe was kind of a grumpy, gravelly voiced character. And they were from Oceanside. And they bought themselves a new boat shortly after they joined, a 36-foot Chris Craft. And at the time, let me tell you, that was a big boat in the club. Anyway, they got into an argument about something. Oh, and by the way, Teddy drove a pink Cadillac convertible. Teddy and Joe got into an argument about something, and Joe said, well, I'm going to go ahead and do this anyway. And Teddy said, well, if you do, I'm painting that damn boat pink. Well, Joe went ahead and did it, didn't think anything more about it. Teddy called Mauricio's, told Tony to pick up the boat and paint the damn thing pink. And next time Joe came down to the club, the boat is right at A and B dock ramp at the end. They were in I think, A1. And here's this pink 36-foot Chris Craft sport fisher. And that's a story I thought you guys would like to hear.
I'm Fred Plus. We have about 300 of those. Yeah, we're trying to get together once every month. Mostly Kathy organizes that, and there's always some people that want to help. So I'm doing that because it's fun. You get together people who have to talk with an hour or two of good conversation.
This is pretty much the core group, I would say, of the morning line.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah. This is it.
Anyway, we took the boat down to Cabo San Lucas, a private boat, and we got there and then we went out fishing the day, and then we saw this fella in a dinghy waving his arms back and forth like this. And so we went up to him, and then we found out that he was on this Chinese junk that has been disabled for a few days. And so anyway, we went up to the boat. When we got to the boat, we saw maybe 200 or 300 Dorado underneath the boat. Apparently the boat was drifting long enough where it attracted a lot of Dorado. And so anyway, we threw lures and, to the boat, and some of the times we bounced it off the boat, not knowing that, we can cast that well. But anyway, we got a lot of fish, and we released most of them. Mooney brought in a few just to eat. And then I was elected to jump in the water and swim to the boat to tie off the line to tow them back to Cabo San Lucas. And apparently everything was working when they left San Francisco. But on the way down, the big rudder that's in the back broke, and so they couldn't steer.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Garvey, and I'm sorry I'm not with you today. Most of you know me as the captain of the Linda Elias One Design team that has won for the past few years, going for our third win in a row this year. This is a story about doing the right thing, and we were on a sled called Alchemy in Long Beach, California in 2009, and we were on a wind delay. Before the race, there was this cute little sea lion by the transom that all of a sudden just jumped up on the transom. Once he was there, we noticed that he had gill nets around his neck that were pretty deep wounds, and he was exhausted. He obviously spent a lot of time trying to free himself. And we basically had the decision of kicking him off the boat and starting our race, or trying to get him some help and possibly missing the beginning of the race that we prepared for. So after lots of conversations and phone calls, we ended up bringing him into the Harbor Master dock, where the San Pedro Marine Life Rescue got the fire department to come meet us and hold the animal until they could come and rescue it. So it was really a team effort, also by race committee, who decided to start the 540s first and then our race, also by the other competitors who didn't protest us for leaving the race course. And we were awarded with a humanitarian award of a little baby seal at the award ceremony. Although we didn't win the race, we did win the hearts and minds of all of our competitors. A lot of logistics go into every regatta, as a lot of people know, and a lot of money and time, and trying to do everything right for the regatta, and in the end it was really only important to do the right thing. And little baby seal lived because of us, which is really cool.
Drew Burnett, I am a junior staff Commodore at the club. We joined in 1981. And one of the early, I don't think it was called the talent show, or it might have been called the talent show, not the Follies at that time, but I remember Lena and Tom, right? Kennedy. They did a display. Basically, they backed up to a wall in the old clubhouse, and they pinned a sheet and a blanket in front of them, and they had pillows behind their heads. They're actually standing up, and they had the most, it was ribald but clean conversation between the two of them in bed. I don't know if any of you remember that display, but it was just, it had the whole crowd rolling. And it was so much fun, and that was one of our introductions as young members of the club. And it was just like, this is a fun place, and that's what the club is about. We have fun together.
Good evening. I'm Rob Epstein. Been a member here at Southwestern Yacht Club since the early 70s. I've seen many transitions, and I'd like to congratulate all the committees that made our current club possible. Growing up as a kid, I never expected to see wahoo, blue marlin, black marlin, triggerfish, and the other exotics that we normally catch in waters 500 miles south of San Diego. But these last 2 years have brought fishing to our areas that I think even exceeded the expectations of all the experts. Our fishing community here at Southwestern Yacht Club, that being the anglers, has been around since the early to mid 50s. We've had many anglers, we've had phenomenal fishermen through the years. And I'm sorry to say a lot of those members who have left us have never experienced this type of fishing in local waters. The anglers this year brought in wahoo, bluefin ranging from 25 to 200 pounds. There were several blue marlin caught. Recently there were some triggerfish caught off of our coast. We're hoping that this summer we may see a tail end of the effects of the El Nino, but in a way we're hoping that it returns to our normal pattern of good local marlin fishing, tuna fishing, especially albacore, and that the coastal fishing, the calico bass and halibut, make a resurgence with the cooler water.
Rob, I can't let you go without you telling me, didn't you catch one very large marlin?
I was the lucky recipient of catching actually 2 fish of a lifetime this year. One was a 190-pound bluefin, and the other was a 648-pound blue marlin. The blue marlin was caught on a day that everybody aboard will never forget. We started off the morning catching 3 wahoo. The water was 75 degrees and there wasn't a ripple. We decided to explore a little deeper waters off the coast, and within about 45 minutes of putting up the large lures, this blue marlin struck a lure, and 6 hours later, close to 9 o'clock at night, we were fortunate enough to put it on the boat and to head home. That, to me, was the most memorable event of my lifetime fishing in these waters.
What is it about that blue marlin that makes it the pinnacle of fishing?
I feel if I can catch these fish in our local waters, it's more meaningful than having to travel to some exotic destination to catch the fish of a lifetime. In the late 1990s, I was able to catch a swordfish locally, which again is a once-in-a-lifetime event. I imagine I could travel to other parts of the country and be guaranteed of catching a swordfish, which would in itself be a feat. But the fact that I can catch it off of our coast and be part of Southwestern is what makes it more memorable. I'd like to wish everybody the best of luck in the upcoming calendar year for Southwestern Yacht Club. And again, I'd like to thank everybody who has made this possible.
Hi, I'm Marcia Muradian. I am not an old member, but I have a little story about Joyce over there. We play Mahjong, and I was introduced to a new Mahjong member and said, well, Magali was not there that day, and Joyce was at our table. And so she was very quiet, and so we kind of talked about how to play, and by the end of the day, she had beat everybody at the table. She did not act like an old member at all. She had the best memory at the table, so it was great meeting someone with the excitement that Joyce had, and so we really enjoyed her.
In 1972, my husband helped build the second clubhouse, but at the opening day, or the night before actually, I'll never forget, I was behind the bar and I went to start washing dishes, and they said, oh no, you can't do anything, you're the Commodore's wife. Well, the year before, in the old clubhouse, everybody waited on tables, they washed the dishes, they did everything. So it was so difficult to come here and not be able to lift a finger. And also, I just always remember that the first 20 years that we were members, it was a men's club. Women had nothing to say. There was the luncheons, that was about the only thing that the Vice Commodore's wife had to do, and I never wanted to do it, so somebody else took my job.
Hi, I'm John Prentice, and I've been a Southwestern Yacht Club member for 39 wonderful years. And back in the early 90s, 1992, I was the sail fleet captain, and I had a fantastic program chair that year that put on all of our programs, and he was a real bulldog. His name was Bill Pate, later became Commodore of the club, and he was able to get some terrific programs and just worked on people until they said yes. And we had people like Dennis Conner, Paul Kayard, Don Riley of America's Cup fame. We had Randy Repass, who at that time owned West Marine. We had Frank Butler and Jerry Douglas from Catalina Yachts, and Frank Butler had never done a program like this, and Bill talked him into doing it, and he just had a ball. People responded to him terrifically. And so that year was just terrific programs, great turnouts, and everybody had a great time.
So tell us about your cruising adventure in Kumbaya, how you got Kumbaya.
Well, we had decided in the early 90s that we were wanted to go cruising, so we started looking for a boat. And I was visiting with Don and Ellen, Barbara and I were, and they told me they had been looking at a Cavalier 39 from New Zealand. And Barbara said, I love that boat. We saw it in the 1981 San Diego Boat Show, and let's go look at it. And we did, and we bought it, and that would be our cruising boat. And so then we started over the next 4 years getting the boat ready to go cruising. In 1999, we had everything ready. We were living on the boat. People would come by and they said, when are you going to leave? It was the late winter of 1999, early spring of 1999. We said, well, whenever we're ready. And finally in March we were ready, and we left the yacht club to go south. And we were the only boat going down the coast of Baja California in March of that year.
That's late to be going south.
And we got down to Cabo San Lucas. We had 3 stops, and then we went from there about a 400-mile trip to Manzanillo and just relaxed. And from there on, we cruised for 15 years. 3 years in Mexico and Central America, and the last 12 on the East Coast going to the Bahamas for 6 to 8 months every winter.
And I see you're wearing your Bahamas shirt there.
Yeah, I have my Bahamas shirt on.
Good for you.
Well, thank you, Don.
Also, I want to mention that we had a port captain who had a boat on B-Dock. It was a beautiful, beautiful ketch that he had built in Japan and sailed it over here. So he was not a novice sailor, but he got the idea that he wanted to put some salt water in the bilge to let the wooden boat swell up. It was a plank boat. So he came in one evening and opened the petcock to run salt water in, and apparently got distracted, or anyway, he went home. The next morning, the dock lines were holding the boat up. So normally I would go out that direction, but for some reason, I was living on the boat, and for some reason I went up the other way, so I did not notice the boat. But when I came back, everything was strewn out along the dock, and I thought that was pretty good about walking off and leaving it. You know, a few years ago, there was a craze going around about streakers. Well, we had our own streakers here, and you'd never guess who they were. There were 2 staff Commodores, and they streaked the dining room. Well, all you could hear was from the people in the dining room. So, and I'll name the 2 streakers because they're past, and they wouldn't care anyway because there was nothing bad about it. It was just a funny situation. It was John Pole and John Tanner.
Oh, wow.
And they were dressed in apparently pantyhose, dark pantyhose.
Yeah, I'm Phil Hoffman. The name of my boat is the Sojourner. Been fishing marlin for many, many years. Decided to go to San Clemente. So I got my friend Russ. We left. Went over to San Clemente. I had a lobster trap. We put down that evening. Next morning we get up. Decide to go down toward the 43. It's a high spot.
But before you left, did you pull your lobster trap?
Oh yeah, we pulled the lobster trap. There was 12 lobster in it.
Wow.
Which is slightly over limit, but they tasted pretty good. So we steamed over the 43 spot, had 4 lines in the water, put marlin jigs out. We got bit on all 4 lines. Finally, after all the commotion, we settled down to 1 fish, put him on the boat, gaffed him of course, put the lines back in the water, went up swell a little bit, and got another single. Put that one on the boat. By that time, the word had got out that we had these 2 marlin. A little unusual for 24th of December. And came into San Diego.
On the way in, what'd you find?
Oh, we found this turtle floating out there. So I had a net. So we put that on the boat. We released him. Came back toward the San Diego, went to the Marlin Club and weighed him in.
This is a fishing story that Phil and I went on the Sojourner, which is our boat, in mid-80s. And it was our Southwestern Club Marlin tournament. And it was an August morning, flat, calm, beautiful water. And we were looking for marlin, of course. You see a tailor going down swell. I'm going, Phil, drive up in front of it so I can cast a bait on it. So we cast a bait on him, got him hooked up, and the whole fleet is listening to us. We're hooked up, we're hooked up. So I'm fighting the fish on the bow. Perfect. We start to see color. The fish is coming up, and the mackerel, it was a live bait, us ran up the line, and I'm going, no, we don't want this to happen. So we let the fish go out a little more. But then I said, no, let's just try and get him in. And, oops, here comes a shark. And I'm going, oh, do something, throw a paper plate. If you throw a paper plate, they'll go for it. But it was just the two of us on board. So I said, okay, let's try and get him in. Here comes the shark, and here comes the mackerel up the line. That shark was after the mackerel. And sure as you know what, he came and grabbed that mackerel, cut off the line, and I lost my fish. And I was the only one hooked up that day. I could have won the tournament. So that's one fishing story.
Okay, my name is Tommy Flanagan. Flip and I joined the club in 1974. Been active for a lot of years. Now I want to preface this, Lowell Taylor, don't you get mad at me. All I can say before I start this little story, I don't think God is having Rod take care of the gardening in heaven. Okay, several years ago, we always had a luau. Well, for, you know, okay, well, for years, Flip and I had done a real luau on the beach, Shelter Island, where we went down to Baja and we got lots of lava rocks and brought them down, and we kept them every year. We would dig a hole out there and we would bury a pig. Marlene and so many of the others, we'd stand pig watch all night long, and then dig the hole. Remember Mick McGuire and people like that? Yeah, dig the pit. And we would have 200 or 300 people there for our pig out. Well, the club, the year Rod was Commodore, asked us to take charge of the luau. So, well, you want a real, like, in the ground luau? Yeah, okay. So Mick and they get out there and they dig the hole and we get it all going and everything. And I tell Rod, I said, okay, now Rod, we need banana leaves. We've got the wood, we've got everything. He said, oh, okay, banana leaves. I'll go get them. He comes back, he has one gallon bird of paradise plant. Banana leaves, bird of paradise plant. Oh, thanks, Rod. Okay. Okay, anyhow, we go out, we found some houses in Point Loma that had banana trees, and they let us go in and get them. I mean, it takes a lot of banana leaves if you're doing an authentic Hawaiian barbecue. But the long and the short of it is, we had a marvelous luau, we had a great time, but we teased Rod unmercifully. Thank you.
We had been in Catalina. This is a different story, and we're heading back to San Diego. And we leave there very early in the morning because we want to get back to Southwestern before it gets dark. So as we had left Catalina, we hadn't been out more than about an hour and a half or so, and we suddenly see these two Navy ships side by each out there. And that's kind of interesting. I wonder why they're so close. And as we get a little bit closer, one's an aircraft carrier and the other is a tanker. I said, why are they out here and what are they doing? And then we look and you can begin to see there's a slick on the water between these two. And we sail around them and get past them, and this slick is very, very obvious and getting thicker by the minute. And well, that's kind of peculiar because it looks to us, we can see hoses and so forth. There's no question but they're refueling the aircraft carrier, and they're well inside the limits. We go on back to San Diego. We get to Southwestern Yacht Club, and there's a big report that there has been a huge oil spill off of Oceanside. So we go to the Navy and we reported that what we had seen, and sure enough, they had broken a line and they dumped unknown tens of thousands of gallons of oil between just right out from Oceanside. Well, we thought, so we've done our duty. Later on, I'm at Naval Station again taking a look, and they have a big board up there, and they have a plot showing aircraft carrier, showing the tanker, and right behind it they show a symbol of a sailboat with our name on it, Alejos.
At that time, we sold the boat and bought a new one.
Yeah, we got rid of the boat instantly. Wasn't a good idea to be owners of Alejos, having reported the Navy.
Hi, I'm Betty Rowe West. I think I've been a member from 1974. Renee Arts brought us over. We had the Papagayo, and we joined the club. This has been a wonderful, wonderful time. At that time, we lived in Long Beach. We would come down every Friday. If you did not get to the club to make a reservation for dinner at 3:30, you didn't eat here. That's when we had the bingo games going. It was fantastic. And also I go back to John Tanner, Bob and Ann Dixon. The three of us, every month, on the first Monday of the month, would go out for a breakfast cruise. We'd either go, all three of us would go on, we'd have separate boats that would go. Our boat would go, then John and Ann Dixon. Anyway, we had a wonderful time. I've seen the club grow. It brings back a lot of memories. Jenny, thank you so much for bringing everybody together.
I suggested we start a library. And it took me 13 years to get it. And Roger Fitzwilson promised, he said, when I get to be the Commodore, you're going to have your library. So one day, one Saturday, I met him down at the entrance to that small room, and he had a gentleman, I forgot who he was, but he was a fire marshal. Well, against the, the north wall, there were some French doors, glass doors. And you opened those doors, you went into a small room where the board of directors would meet there. And so Roger said, what happened if we take these doors out? Would it create any problem? The fire marshal said, no problem at all. So they took the doors off, and Bill Tadlock had just done a $100,000 remake of the bar area, and he had all this lovely teak wood left. So he had a bookcase made, and we slid that puppy in there. Well, I handled collecting the books. People would bring them down in boxes, and they'd leave them in the front office. And then I'd put them in the bookcase. Now the problem is, we have a wonderful library now that has probably 4 times as much space as we had in the old one. So I ended up taking boxes home of books because we didn't have any space. And I forgot what happened when the club was built. I just kind of, I was doing something else and wasn't able to get involved, so some other ladies took over handling the books. But I ended up buying from City Schools a big, wonderful bookcase, and it sits in my living room, and it's packed with all those books. I want to get rid of them. Any of you want books? Yeah.
Bring them in and have a book sale, benefit of the juniors.
My parents were members here, joined in about 69, I believe, 68, 69, somewhere around there. Oh, my mother worked at the Martin Club with Lois Ivy, and my dad came down one day and said, Darlene, I'm going to go join the yacht club. Finally made his decision, which took him about 2 years to make. But he said, and I'm going to go over to Silvergate. And at the time, Scully Wilbur was at the club, and he grabbed my dad by the ear, drug him in his car, drove him over here, and said, "This is the club you're joining." So at that point, I became a junior member. And when I turned 18, my parents said, "Well, you need to join the club." And I said, "No, I can't afford to join the club." And they said, "Well, we'll pay half." And I said, "No, I can't afford to pay half." So I was actually a guest from then until 7 years ago when we finally joined. Okay, so that was part. So right after we joined, actually within the first year, I believe, Donna Templin calls me up and says, "Would like you to join the angler board." And I says, "Donna, I enjoy the club, but I do not do politics well." He says, "No, it's a fun group." I says, "You don't understand. I was kicked out of the Boy Scouts because it got political. When I went to San Diego State, I was the founding member of the Water Ski Association at San Diego State, and I got kicked out of there as well." And I said, "I don't want to get kicked out of the club. We just spent $10,000 to join. I don't want to get kicked out of the club." He says, "No, it's a fun group, and if you don't like it, you can always quit." I said, "I don't know. You're going to have to let me think about this." She says, "Okay." So she calls me bright and early the following morning and says, "Are you going to join?" I says, "I don't know." She says, "Yeah, you're going to join. Come on, say yes." I said, "Oh, Donna, you make it tough, but I'll give it a try." And it was absolutely the best thing I ever did. By being a member of the Anglers, I got involved in many things, even got the golden shovel, and it's the best thing that ever happened to us.
We were neighbors. I miss him. And one time for opening day, he was all dressed up, of course, and he went out with his boat with a lot of people on board. And you know, when you have many people, and sometimes you trust people that you don't supposed to. And I have a lot of people on my boat too. And then suddenly, he went out, he put it in reverse, and somebody forgot to take a line out of the cleat. So Roger went to our boat, and he was devastated. You know, imagine with all that people that he did that, but it wasn't his fault. Anyway, he went out and on the parade and everything, and I saw him coming in with his boat. So of all the people that I have on my boat, I gave everybody a pillow. So we were all waiting for him on the side of our boat with the pillow on it, and he just laughed, and it was a great story because he was, you know, we're neighbors. I wasn't worried about what he did. He was worried, of course, but I wasn't worried. Everything worked out, but it was funny. That's it.
Drew Burnett, I am a junior staff Commodore at the club. We joined in 1981. And one of the early, I don't think it was called the talent show, or it might have been called the talent show, not the Follies at that time, but I remember Lena and Tom, right? Kennedy. They did a display. Basically, they backed up to a wall in the old clubhouse, and they pinned a sheet and a blanket in front of them, and they had pillows behind their heads. They're actually standing up, and they had the most, it was ribald but clean conversation between the two of them in bed. I don't know if any of you remember that display, but it was just, it had the whole crowd rolling. And it was so much fun, and that was one of our introductions as young members of the club. And it was just like, this is a fun place, and that's what the club is about. We have fun together. Sir?
Yeah, one of the stories that I like to tell is when Barbara and I, with my daughter Kristen, were sailing back from Catalina to San Diego. we had the spinnaker up, I was sitting on the rail, and I fell overboard.
With the spinnaker up?
With the spinnaker up. And she, in about 3 steps, got the man overboard pole and buoy into me, and I swam into it. But the boat kept sailing away. She had to go get the sail down. She got the sail down. The boat was almost out of sight. Now, I was comfortable. I was in the buoy, and it was summertime, so the water was warm. But for her, she had to get the sail down. She got spinnaker down, and then she was concerned about would some of the lines get caught in the prop. So she turned the boat around and started sailing it back towards me. Of course, she couldn't see me. Now I was miles away. And she called the Coast Guard and told them, and they said, okay, keep us informed. In the meantime, there was a boat coming from Catalina along our same route, and they happened to be Southwestern Yacht Club members. They saw me and the buoy and came over and picked me up. A few minutes later, she got inside and sailed the boat. She never turned the engine on because she was concerned about the lines getting caught in the prop, but she sailed the boat up, and I got back on the boat with her and Kristen, and we put the sails back up and continued down to Southwestern Yacht Club.
Hi, good morning. First of all, I want to thank Don Freeman for doing this, along with his wife Ellen, with the support of the club. This is just a tremendous thank you. So we came down to the club several times, and we explored, and we spoke to many different people, because I always want to make sure there's a good fit in what we do, and because I'm a person who likes to get involved and take an active part in any organization I belong to. It's nice to be a member, but it's better to be an active member and contribute to knowledge that you have to help the organization grow as much as you can. So that's what we did. After several visits, we joined, and then we got involved, and we met more people, and it became another family for us, the Yacht Club family. So one of, in helping Don and Ellen Freeman later on with the inmates, was they gave me the opportunity to take over a little bit. And one of the things we did was we did eggplant. And that was really a fun event, because we had to have the peelers, the cutters, the slicers, the dippers, the fryers, the layers, and everything else. Everybody had a group of jobs to do to get that eggplant done. And it was like an assembly line to do it, and everybody had such a great time doing it. And those dinners really brought the people together. It brought them back together so much that they always wanted to come back every year. And it was tough to get the new people involved, because I had all the old timers to do who wanted to do it. I totally believe it's the friendliest yacht club in San Diego, and everybody contributes to that to make it work, and all the activities. And it's just it's a very comfortable place to be. Everybody is welcoming. And then we started the poker posse, which was good, a bunch of guys playing poker. But, we have a good time. We enjoy it. We go down, and we like to sit on the veranda out there. You think you're on your cruise ship and just relaxing.